Okay, and so there is one, or maybe it's a comment from Lev Manovich for Nastya. Well, Lev didn't understand the point about difficulties on working with visitors' online data. All museums, he says, and cultural organizations usually run web analytics on their website, which automatically provides more detailed analysis. The tools are free. Maybe just your museum doesn't run it. Yeah.
No, it's a misunderstanding, because I was talking about physical visitors and their data. I didn't explain the thesis. I'm sorry. So it wasn't about the digital visitors, actually. It was about physical visitors and using the Wi-Fi and their data to see how they behave in the space of the museum. So it was about this. Yeah, sorry, that's my mistake. I didn't explain more what I was talking about. Yeah.
I see. Okay, well, great, thank you. And now we have, I think we should give some privilege to the participants online to ask their questions. And if there are any, you can ask both on chat and or you can just speak up if you have a question. There's also an issue, if you can raise your hand if you like. Okay, there's something from Lev. So Nastya, would you like to reflect on this? So Lev is saying, of course, some museums do analyze physical visitors' data, but indeed, I'm not sure there are any common tools to collect and analyze it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's increasing thing to do among museums, yeah, institutions. But I also not a specialist to comment on this, but it's I think it's the part which was mentioned in articles I was referring to as the most expensive thing for the big institutions who can afford this kind of work with visitors' data and physical visitors' data.
Okay, but I think there are some digital tools how we can make it, like sensors and so on, and well, kind of old-fashioned ways. A questionnaire, which provides kind of a random sampling, or it's analog, but obviously it's not. It's expensive indeed, and I'm not quite sure that is as accurate as web analytics. Yeah. So yeah, eye movements analysis. Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Lev. Great. So do we have any other questions, both from the audience online and offline? Okay. If not for now, I have some questions from me, actually, and maybe like 3 questions, both to Benjamin and Nastya. So, yeah, thanks for bringing a lot of insights here from totally different contexts, I think. And I've been just thinking during this panel about some existing dichotomies in the art world, but in the broader culture. And maybe I would just focus on dichotomies between kind of social, of course, it's not a binary dichotomy, but as Weberian ideal types, I think they exist somehow. So we can talk more about social welfare state and how it reflects on the crisis in terms of organization of culture. So like we should museums somehow keep going, we should keep the salaries, or we can talk more about the neoliberal context, which I'm sure the Netherlands represents somehow. Yeah, so in this way, I was also thinking about the point that Benjamin brought, like, so we were thinking about the future, but what is about the cultural past? Because if the museum's not currently operating, like, where is our past? We don't have it right here, and maybe this rupture with the past is kind of a drama, and maybe I will develop these ideas more, because I was writing something about nostalgia, about physical spaces of museum, like people try to bring these spaces in, no matter what, like private visits, if you can, if you have some social capital, or like all of these excursions with empty museums, halls. Like I think in Russia there was a lot of that, but maybe in Holland. So probably with my first question, I would just ask you to kind of to bring your situations in a broader social and political context. And if we can do a bit of comparison, I think it would be very useful. Yeah. So Benjamin, would you like to start with that?
Yes,
Oh, we can't hear you. Or maybe it's just me.
I unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. It's much better.
That I was going to say, it is quite striking, because if you, in the present circumstance that the museums are closed, I actually realized since I've written my talk and taking a little distance from it, I actually think the idea that if we used the film that you showed of Turkish Airlines as a metaphor, for me, that's this kind of corporate thing of we're in control, everything's beautiful, but there's also some way that right on the surface of it, they're showing some creepy, horrible, dystopian future, as you mentioned, for those who can see it. But what I'm thinking is, you could, if you wanted to be, we were Chicken Little. I mean, it is a little bit like the sky has fallen. We live in very strange times, and I do wonder about whether you're going to have access to the past at all. So what I would say is something very basic, which is the function that the museums served in the past of saying, we give you access to the past, for example, historical museums, I think is going to change as there's this necessary democratization, which is both positive and negative, of everybody going online and having access to more things. I think it's possible that the central authority function is going to be subverted. So you were asking about neoliberal, I mean, what the museum is trying to do. I think the museum, unfortunately, at this point, those museums are trying to hold on. And there's a kind of tsunami of all of these things. I know there's all kinds of museums closing, and I think they're desperately looking for some way to stay open, to stay relevant. But from my, let's say, outsider perspective, what's interesting is, well, what happens to our relation to all those objects that previously the museum, to something like Rembrandt, to something like whatever the Dutch is, which is important. You can make money off of it, but it's important for the Dutch going forward and for a diverse, happy, functioning society that's got some relation to culture. I think I would bring it to a point is, I have this strange polemic, which is saying, I don't feel that anybody's weirdly talking really about Rembrandt as Rembrandt, despite the enormous cultural, economic, and so on cachet. And that's what I'm looking at, is what's going to happen in the future to Rembrandt if there's something like museums closing. It's possible that we'll learn to know more than ever about Rembrandt. There is a technical thing of an absence of contact with actual paintings, the ones that are supposed to be by Rembrandt that are not, the whole context of Golden Age art. But there's also a major subverting of the authority and control of museums as our only access to things like that. That's what how I'm looking at this right now.
Yeah, before passing the word to Nastya, I think she's got a lot to reply with. I would just ask a question of curiosity. So, like Rembrandt, does it exist digitally? Does he exist digitally as I know TikTok from the museum, or are there any posters in the city? And so on.
The Operation Night Watch is up. You have that, if you're interested, you look it up. The fellow Erdman got it for me on my phone, and I suppose it's still on there. So, but the point, again, this is quite concrete. There was all kinds of stuff. There's a Wikipedia, or there's various presentations about Rembrandt, which I'm going to be chiming into and have already, and in various ways. And we're all ghosted and digitally present. But what's interesting, I think now is, as we all are forced into this, we have to look at how is actually Rembrandt being represented on the web. It's not just the wonderful initiative of Operation Night Watch or the web museum of Rembrandt or whoever's doing this, but it's more like what I thought one of your fundamental points in the introduction was, which is the museum being forced to look at itself, at its back room, its motives, its methods. It's like this whole pandemic, and what I'm calling the pandemonium of all of us being thrown on here, is itself a form of maybe stripping away the formal clothes. The museum is being caught with its pants down. I mean, that's the negative way of looking at it. I thought what Anastasia said, I thought, oh, well, that's amazing. The Holocaust Museum is talking about contemporary Holocaust and what's been going on. It's like your mind starts racing about what all of the possibilities could be. And I don't mean to be very negative. I love, of course, museums. I love the Rijksmuseum, and I mourn not being able to go and see these things. It was a great privilege to be angry at them and saying, what you're not showing. Whereas now we're in this, it's more like, will we ever see a painting again? And but we have to stand up and try to, in a positive way, think quickly about what can we do to seize victory from the jaws of defeat, and turn this situation as something that is a positive democracy and positive self-reflection. And
yeah, great. And there also was a comment from Lev in the chat. So maybe Ben, you want to check this project called Next Rembrandt. Yeah, maybe I heard about that. Okay, so I'm passing the word back to Nastya.
Yeah, I agree with what Benjamin said already, and just as I mentioned, I think that the whole tendency is for museums to be less arrogant towards general public, and yeah, I don't know what will we face actually in the future. I mean, it's time to think right now. Yeah, but I definitely see it as well as yeah, I simulating new Rembrandt painting. Yeah, this is definitely the more I think there will be much more different museums of different kind, not like we all are here talking about the very old concept of the museum, and it might be, I mean, it's already existing. Yeah, so I think that is kind of the future of the institution. So not only this kind of like 19th century physical space where with some curiosity objects are kept, but more turning into the kind of public like knowledge gathered by general public maybe, and so on. So I don't know, maybe this direction. yeah, but it can be understood like less didactic towards the public, can be understood in this neoliberal concept, like like we should do what people like want from us, yeah, and this is data analysis of the visitors behaving in the space is teaching us about that direction, yeah. And another one is like this crowd gathering information and more like working with in a collaborative way, in like in a horizontal collaborative way with the community. I don't know if I answered the question, but it's like tendency I think will go on. But it's already existing. I mean, it's nothing new. It's just the situation brought it to more or less to more understanding of these directions. I think deeper understanding. I don't know if I'm clear.
Well, to me, it's quite clear. Just what I was thinking regarding that, it just well, the museum is kind of course, it's older than TikTok and older than AI. But if you look closer, so and if you take a bigger kind of a time scale, longer time scale, it just it's kind of new still. Like the ideas of collecting art and exhibiting in the public museum that is open for general public, and also general public is a kind of a new idea. So in this case, if we discuss a museum, contemporary art, or like more traditional visual art museum, in comparison with these newer forms like again, Instagram, TikTok, I know ReadyMag, and other visual platforms. Like maybe it's a kind of a last hit for this museum, so like last shot, because like what museums trying to do during the pandemic is maybe they can't go that fast as other platforms, but it just what museums, I think, secretly try to do is to maintain their hegemonic role over culture, because like everybody knows that it's not only museums but also all other platforms, and they have their own art there, but this art is for some reasons less kind of valuable than what museums do. So I don't think that actually, maybe like I'm too bold with saying that, but I don't think that museums seriously try to make their own TikToks, Instagram, and so on. And that's just more than that, less than that. They try to make their presence more visible. Like, we're not doing it for general public. We're just saying, like, we're not competing. We're just saying, no, we are here. And because of our hegemonic role in cultural production, you should have a look at us. Otherwise, you will be feeling guilty. Like, do you remember this anecdote from the first wave? Like, so about the person who just eats, and about the person who kind of learning new languages and going all over these Instagram excursions and so on. Like, and if you don't do that, you need to feel guilty. You're again, like, you're not visiting the museums. Like, I think that secretly, like, digital museums in Pandemonium, they were created for this. But I know it's just a hypothesis. So, Ben, do you have anything to reply?
Trying to be brief. I love the way that this conference's concerns are about, I mean, there's really vital issues. What is culture? What's going on with money and power? Those are big questions. I think when I bear down on my specific subject, and it's funny just to respond a little bit to Lev, that he invoked this idea of trying to yoke contemporary art. I think it's an initiative, the Rijksmuseum, what is going to be the next Rembrandt. One of the things that's going on is they try to leverage a name brand of the past, like Rembrandt. This is high culture, this is very valuable and important, in order to showcase, get people looking at contemporary art and keep it alive. And it works the other way around, which is try to keep new blood in the museum. My question is partly about, if you see, one of the things I'm trying to complicate is if this pair behind me, the Martin and Opian, we're already a kind of, we found the next Rembrandt. And the way that they did that is to not ask those hard questions about what's going on with student paintings and paintings that were always still in private collection, were never that well known. Nobody's really looking, because for me, that money and the brand and the value has to do with something very concrete that I'm invested in, which is Daddy! What actually, you got to be a little bit quiet. Oh, well, that's what's important. A little girl is that's the future. But I'm not sure that I can name it, but I think that what's exciting is what you are all talking about in a very concrete way. Yes, you are. Go out now, play. I love, it's like that guy in the Korean, I'll go back to you, that there's some famous dated by his kids. But the relation between those two things, whatever this, my trying to hold on to this agenda about, wait a minute, what is Rembrandt? And on the other hand, these really important questions, where does the money come from? Who's deciding what culture is? How does it affect our lives? Things like what people have to do for a living, or how people are treated in institutions, or where's Holocaust going on? Where is our attention going? But the funny thing is, you can't not take me seriously, because I know that you can't be, it's not just a kitsch thing about tourism and old people and some old-fashioned thing. There's some way that the name Rembrandt is also our last hope in this eclipse and collapsing of everything. It's just one of many examples, but it's also something like Leonardo. All of the investments, and that it goes both ways, looking back at that and trying to bring contemporary avant-garde Russian questions about society onto that old-fashioned stuff. And I'm hoping that yoking your contemporary museums and everything to, how does that look to a model like the Rijksmuseum, where as Rita says, they're not worried about the Rijksmuseum or the Louvre or the British Museum. They're not really worried about it going under. I think it's about the people who are in charge thinking, how do I stay on top of a wave or something, show that what I'm doing with my, the Hermitage is not going to go under anytime soon, but it would be great if we could steer them in some direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Great. So Nastya or anyone, do we have any other additions here? Not for now. Maybe I would just reflect to the latest comment there, that museums combine function, indication, artist in residence, and exhibition is only one part. The other parts are not necessarily affected by the pandemic and can become even bigger in the future. I would just say that I would totally agree with that. And in terms of museum marketing, we can, maybe not in Rijks, but and not in the Hermitage for now, but in Garage, in Tate, in American museums, we can see like many other functions, they like gift shops even, which are now designer shops in many cases. They play a more important role significantly, and when in my short paper, The Privilege of Presence, when I wrote about new conservatism, new like analog, I think, or offline conservatism of museums, I just said that actually the buildings of the museums are so important because they give the privilege of presence as a place of meeting. And the very recent empirical example comes from Garage Museum, because I was just there with the guys of the scientific department. I was there in residence for 3 weeks. And it was just impossibly interesting how the museum itself closed, but the only cafe is open, and how the cafe is full with museum professionals having their meetings there. And sometimes the meetings were just like a kind of a speed dating, because you come for one meeting and then you switch to another one, to another one, to another one. So that's very important for the professionals to have this field being like visible and materialized. Maybe again to continue the boundaries be visible and basically existing. Yeah. Okay, great. So I think that's the last chance to someone bring something to the table right now. If we don't have any additions at the moment, maybe we can just stop here with the session 1. It's been like 1 hour 30 minutes. And now, according to the program, we have our luxurious lunch break for 2 hours. Yeah, it just maybe we could be starting early, but I think it can be quite complicated, because some other participants for the second panel will just join us later. So yeah, maybe we just keep it going like this. Okay, nice. Pretty happy with the beginning. Hope you're happy too. And so I think I will ask Eda, who is our Zoom person, for now to stop the conference. And I do recall that we will start over again at 3:30 p.m. Turkish time and Russian time, but by this weird coincidence. See you very soon. Bye-bye.